young man, haven't you been told California's full of whiskey, women and gold, sleeping out all night beneath the desert stars, with a dream in my eye and a prayer in my heart. I should have been a cowboy.
Alrighty guys, thanks for tuning in to Deuce's Wild channel. Today I'm not going to be talking about anything radio controlled related. It's all going to be about black powder firearms, little pros and cons, my experiences that I've had with my particular guns, and just kind of share that with some of my black powder firearms enthusiasts. I want to give a big shout out to Black Powder Papa and Drizo. I've been following those guys' content a lot lately, and these guys are great, man. Their head and their heart is in the right place with our Second Amendment, and kudos to those guys for getting the message out and basically fighting the good fight, like all of us patriotic Americans who love our constitutional rights should be doing. Basically on that note, I guess what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get the cons, cover the cons and get those out of the way, get that off the table right away. And of course the cons are black powder is messier, and it does take longer to load these guns, so that's a con. And if that's something that you don't particularly care for and it's not your cup of tea, then stick with your standard cartridge firearms like my Glock 19 here. I'll go ahead and unload that. It's just a factory Glock 15 round magazine there, and nothing fancy. But anyway, let's just go ahead and talk about some more of the cons. Of course, it's messier. You got to clean the guns thoroughly and more often, and it takes longer to load. And a lot of people will say that, well, they're just not reliable, and I'm going to say yes and no to that. The biggest issue with black powders, and a lot of people might coin the term that they just have a lot of misfires and stuff like that. I like to be more specific in the actual problem that these things can have and are notorious for, in my opinion, is failure to detonate. And a lot of that has to do with the caps not igniting the charge in the chambers. And that's just something that is going to be, it's going to happen when you get your black powder firearms. Now I'm relatively new to black powders. I got my very first one in 2019 before all the pandemic and everything hit, and that's this 58 Remington. I'm going to go ahead and unload it. It does have the conversion cylinder in it right now, so we're going to go ahead and put it on half cock, and we're going to go ahead and remove the conversion cylinder out of it. And right now it's loaded with 5 rounds of 45 long Colt, and those are 250 grain projectile, and it came with the black powder cylinder, 44 cal, of course. And it is a sweet gun. This was my first one, and I will tell you, this thing is a cannon. I mean, you don't need to. I thought, well, I'm going to try playing around with the 45 cowboy action loads, and they're a lot of fun, but man, they're expensive. You're talking $1 a round. So it gets expensive to shoot, so I really don't do a whole lot of that. I'll play around with it every now and then. I might take a box of 50 out to the range and shoot one box of 50 round cowboy action, but really I enjoy the black powder a lot more, even though it takes longer to load and everything. If I load these chambers up with 35 grains of 777 with a 4.54 or 4.57 round bolt, it's equally, the recoil is equally as powerful as a 45 long Colt, 250 grain projectile, you know, with around 300 foot-pounds of muzzle energy or close to it. It's every bit as powerful and every bit as accurate. And this gun here, it was my first one. Like I said, it has been giving me the least amount of trouble. It's the easiest one to clean. Remingtons are that's just the way they're designed. They're, you know, if you want to start into black powder and you want something that is going to be really reliable, a lot easier to clean, quicker to change out the cylinder, then go with a Remington, a 58 Remington. That they are just very stout. Now, I did have some problems with this gun, but they were very minor. Before I even took it out to shoot. Matter of fact, I had it for a year or so before I even shot it. I didn't do anything with it. I just pardon my sinuses here. I've been sick for the past couple of weeks, and I've been wanting to do this video sooner, but I've been waiting until I feel good. But anyway, the first problem I had with this gun is it wasn't reliability. The timing, everything was good, but this little loading lever stud came off when I was playing around dry firing it a couple times, and so I epoxied it on there, and you know, that fixed that, or so I thought. And then I was still playing around with a little more, and then the front sight came off, and I was like, well, shit. So I epoxied that on there, and so I took it out to the range about a year later, started shooting. Probably got maybe the 5th or 6th cylinder in on it, and then this stud came on. My epoxy didn't hold, and I lost this at the range, and I looked and I looked and I looked, and I could not find it. So I ordered a new one. I think it was like $6 or $8, I forget, but they didn't specify whether they were blued or not. I wound up getting a blued one because they didn't have an option on the website that I ordered it from. So anyway, I got a blued one. I went ahead and JB welded it in, and then I took the now the front post stayed on, but I went ahead and heated it up, took the epoxy off, and I JB welded it on, and then I've shot several hundred rounds through it since, and I've never had a problem. So let that be a lesson to anybody. If you have a problem with these Pietta, this is a Pietta model, by the way, they're not very well attached. I don't know, spot weld or whatever on the barrel stud for the little keeper for the loading lever, and then the front sight post. So you might want to see if you can wiggle them, jig them loose, and then put some JB weld. Don't do anything but JB weld, because that stuff will hold up against all the recoil and everything that you're going to be putting these through when you get to shooting them. But aside from that, when I got it, I took it apart, cleaned all the shipping oil off, and I went with a little file and I knocked all the burrs off the hammer spring, and checked through the channel for the hand and everything. Got rid of all the burrs, and this thing is smooth as butter. Also, this gun has a hair trigger. Of all of my guns, this has the lightest trigger pull, and you have to be careful when you're shooting this thing, and to know ahead of time that this hair trigger is no joke. But I'm used to it. I love it. It's an accurate gun for the most part. Most black powder guns, well, in fact, all the ones I have shoot high. That's just kind of a common theme among black powders, and that's pretty much how this one does. But I know where its sweet spot is. So, and then next, my second gun that I got, because I kind of got addicted. I wanted to get a Colt, an 1851 Navy. I was eyeballing it, so I wound up getting this one off, I believe it was Bud K website. And this is also a Pietta. So my first two guns were Piettas, and this gun here is really accurate. It's kind of my first one that shoots point of aim, closer to point of aim, maybe slightly high on this gun, but not bad. It's pretty much stupid accurate. I mean, this thing is cool. This is a 36 caliber 1851 Navy Deluxe. It has the engraving on the frame, a little bit on the end of the barrel here. This is actually one of my favorites. I did upgrade to the slick shot nipples on this one. I felt like it needed it because it was getting cap jams every now and then. When I did that, that pretty much knocked out 95% of any cap jams I've had on this gun. And you still get them occasionally, but not nearly as bad as it was in the beginning. And so on that note, regarding cap jams, a lot of times what happens is the back pressure when you detonate a round pushes the cap back into the hammer face, and it pushes the hammer back just enough for the cap fragments to get caught right down here in this little slot behind the action. And when you go to fire when you index and fire the next round, it creates just enough gap between the hammer face and the cap that it won't detonate the next round. So that it literally has to sit all the way down and strike that cap to detonate that next round. I've found most of the cap jams and problems that I've had with cap jams have been attributed to, and you're going to kind of find this probably shocking, is the Remington number 10 percussion caps. Because they're made out of copper, and they're thicker than aluminum homemade caps, they tend to give me more problems. My homemade caps, I bought one of those cap makers. I've had less problems with my homemade caps. I've had more failure to detonate with factory Remington number 10 percussion caps than I have with my homemade caps, and I don't know why that is. Maybe they don't put enough of a powder charge in there to set them off on some of them. Some of them are just duds. They will not ignite. When I started making my homemade caps, I am able to control the amount of powder that I put in there, and my reliability went way up. So back on that note, when people say, well, they're just not reliable, they don't always go bang when you pull the trigger, that yes and no. You can work around that. And you can make them more reliable, but the only way that's going to happen is you got to get out there and just start experimenting, start shooting, use these guns, get out there, pump some rounds through these things, see what they like, see what they don't like, see how, what problems they may or may not have, and learn how to work around them. So my third gun, I was intrigued by this little pocket pistol here. This is the Colt, or this is my first Uberti, by the way. These two are Piettas. So I decided, let me give a Uberti a try. And I think I went in the wrong direction for a Uberti. I should have probably got something else. I kind of have a little bit of regrets about this gun. This is the 1862 Pocket Police, and this has been the most problematic gun I've had to date. This one had the worst cap jams, worst failure to detonate around than these other two. These have been the most reliable, most accurate, especially in the terms of accuracy. This thing is definitely extremely accurate, the 51 Navy. I'm not taking anything away from the Remington. It's a very accurate gun, but it does shoot high. This is a 44, this is 36. I haven't had the need to put slick shot nipples on this one. The factory nipples still work great. This gun though, it's kind of been a blessing and a curse. The blessing is I've learned some things with this gun and why it failed to detonate a lot. And of course, the Remington number 10 caps were a bigger issue with this gun than they were with this one in terms of failure to detonate. Well, so I thought, well, let me go ahead and get some slick shot nipples and I'll see if that can cure the problem on this one because it helped this one. I got a set of slick shot nipples. I put them on here and it got worse. I had more failure to detonate. And I'm scratching my head going, well, what the hell? So I grabbed my micrometer. I pulled these slick shot nipples out and I compared them on the base of the nipple where it sits flat when you thread it all the way down against the cylinder. I measured from the base to the edge of the nipple. And it turns out the slick shot nipples were 20 thousandths of an inch shorter. So that was what was causing a lot of failure to detonate because the hammer face wasn't able to strike that cap and detonate the round. So I went back to the stock nipples and my detonation, I was able to detonate the rounds better, but I would still get the periodic cap jam. So I followed I started looking on YouTube, and I followed the advice of Mark Hobbs from Era's Gone Bullet Molds on his YouTube channel. He was talking about the same issues that this Uberti 1862 Pocket Police, and the way he got around it was he put a second hammer spring to give it more strength to keep that hammer against the cap, so when the round detonated, it was less likely to, the back pressure was less likely to push the hammer back and force the spent cap down in the action there and create that gap, which would also attribute to failure to detonate. As soon as that hammer can't sit all the way down, it's less likely to make it go bang. So I did that. It has a secondary back spring in there. And what he also talked about was the hole diameter, the touch hole through the nipple is rather large on these stock ones, and so it allows more back pressure to push that hammer back when the round detonates. So he found some Amco nipples, which have a smaller hole. I've not been able to find any yet. If I do, I'll try swapping them out to the Amco nipples. Now, the one thing that concerns me about a smaller touch hole is if that spark can't get through to the powder to detonate that round. That might be a concern, but I don't know yet until I get some. Eventually, if I find some, and I'll try some out. But putting the extra hammer spring, going back to the stock nipples, has made this gun a bit more reliable, but it's still not 100%. It's not as reliable as these two are, but eventually I hope to get it there because I really like this little guy. This is a scaled way down version of an 1860 Army. The handle style is very similar. It's pretty much a replica of the 1860 Army in the shape, but much smaller version. This is as you can see, my hands. It's a small little pistol, but it can fit in your pocket. It's a great small concealable gun, and although it may not look small on camera, it's small. It'll fit in your pocket, and it's 36 caliber. So if you put 20 grains of 777 in with a 375, or actually a 380 round ball. By the way, Pietta diameters in their chambers and their cylinders are a little smaller than Ubertis. If you buy Ubertis, you're going to find that the 375 Hornady round balls just fit too loosely in there, and it doesn't quite create a good enough gas seal when you press them in. So I went to 380s, and these, they work better, and that's what you're going to find out. So I love the fit and finish of the Ubertis. To me, they're better. They don't put their marking brandings on the side of the barrels like Pietta does. They actually hide them underneath the loading lever, which I think is cool. Makes it a little more discreet. I'm gonna scooch these over. So then I went on to my fourth gun, and I was waiting for these to come in stock, and this is the Uberti 1873 Cattleman in a black powder. And let me tell you something about this gun. I love it so much that I bought a second one. And I'll tell you why. I now have two of them, and these things are awesome. I was a little concerned buying another Uberti because of what I went through with my first one, but all those concerns went right out the window as soon as I got my hands on one of these. Now, you probably say, well, Mike, why did you get a black powder? Why didn't you just get the smoke wagon, get the one with, that uses the 45 long Colt bullets? And I'll tell you why, because after the availability, when the pandemic hit, these were so expensive and super hard to get that I thought, well, if that happens again with all the craziness going on in the world with all these gun control advocates trying to make ammunition harder and more expensive to get and blah, 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 I thought, well, I'm going to stick with black powder because I really like the performance and the power. Yes, it's messier. Yes, it takes longer to load. Yes, it takes more time to clean your guns, blah, blah, blah. But you can literally make your own black powder. You can make your own projectile, and if the shit hits the fan and things get really bad and you can't get ammunition, people that are hoarding or stockpiling are not going to sell it. Well, black powder is an extremely good option, and it's also falls into that category of survivalism. You can make your own black powder out of potassium nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur, 75, 15, and 10%, and you can mix this up in a ball mill. I haven't done it yet, but I've watched several videos on it, and I have it in my head how I could do it and all the stuff I need to do. And of course you can get and melt your own lead projectile. And now you have the ability to keep shooting when ammo's scarce. You have the ability to keep bear arms and protect your household and your family and everything. But anyway, 1873 Uberti Cattleman. These things are awesome. The loading gate is rendered useless because you can't load it. You still have to load it from the front. The ejector rod is useless because it's not a cartridge. So I'm gonna pull the base pin, the cylinder out of this bad boy, and you'll load it from the front. Now I don't have it here down in the basement with me, but I have a Traditions loading lever that I can load it, and I actually like that better than trying to load it with a loading lever on the gun, because I can get more precise with the amounts of powder that I'm putting in. I can take a closer look at the depth in which each projectile is seated and make sure they're nice and even. And that's kind of nice. I can be a little more precise with it. I will say also with Ubertis versus Piettas, Piettas don't crown the end of their barrels. They're just kind of straight cut. Ubertis actually crown their barrels. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but they have a chamfer or crown on the end of their barrels. And I think that's just a little nicer added touch that they do to their guns. But so let's get onto any problems that I've had with this gun. First of all, it's powerful. The balance is beautiful. It's not as front heavy as your 51 Navy or your 58 Remington. So it has a better balance in the hand. After shooting this several times, and I experimented with 25, 30, and 35 grain powder charges using 777, I haven't been able to fire any actual real black powder like GoX or whatever, but only because they have a ridiculous hazmat charge on those things, if any of you guys know. But if you go in with some buddies and order a bunch of it and split the hazmat charge, it's probably the way I'm going to go eventually. But so far I've just been using Pyrodex and 777. I actually like 777 better than Pyrodex. It cleans up a little easier than Pyrodex, and it doesn't smell as bad. But the only problem I had with this gun, after 8 or 10 cylinders, it wouldn't go into full cock. The trigger sear wasn't engaging. It started getting really sticky, and come to find out that the cylinder was locking up before the trigger sear. It would lock up, and then it wouldn't allow the hammer to come back any further to engage the trigger sear. And what was causing that, what I figured out, was that the little flat parts on this ratchet, each time the round went off, it was creating sort of a semi-jackhammering effect. And what that did was it caused these to grow just ever so slightly. And so when the hand came up to index to the next round, the cylinder bolt would lock up in the detent on the cylinder, but it wouldn't allow the hammer to go back any further to engage the trigger sear. So what I wound up having to do, because that grew a little bit, I wound up taking the hand and filing it down a little bit, kept putting it back together, trying it, kept filing it down. I probably did this about 12, 13, 14 times of taking it apart, putting it back together, till I got the hand where it would lock the cylinder up and still have a little bit more movement with the hand underneath the ratchet and allow the trigger sear to engage. So I had to do my own gunsmithing. It still does the 4 clicks. I had to do my own gunsmithing to get the timing on this perfect. So what happens when your pawl or your hand is a little too long? It'll lock the cylinder into place, but it won't allow that hammer to go into full cock to engage a trigger sear. So you literally have to shorten the hand, and I believe they call that's what's called over travel. It's making that cylinder index a little too much. It locks up too early, and it won't allow, like I said, trigger sear. So that is fixable. You can always remove material, you just can't add it. There is a trick though. If it's your pawl's too short, you can actually stretch the hand by peening it out on an anvil, and you can stretch the hand on that one. But I resolved that issue with the first one, and I bought a second one. It started to happen after 3 or 4 cylinders on this one. This one was a little bit tighter on the specs than the first one. It also has a little bit different sound, which is kind of funny. These two are only 3 digits apart in serial numbers. I think this one's 6192, this one's 6195. But I bought the second one because it went on sale, and I love this one so much. So I went ahead and did all my filing on both of these. I've had them completely apart, and I worked out all the burrs, got them all smooth, everything on these guns. These things are awesome. Another cool thing about the black powder version of these is, well, let's see. If you look, you can't really see in the breech there, but it's on the hammer face, it's like a half circle instead of just a pointed pin like on a typical Colt single action. But back here, behind the recoil shield, that little opening there that allows this sort of half moon shaped hammer pin to strike the cap, it's small enough back in there that the cap is unable to blow back against the hammer into the action. The recoil shield prevents that from happening. So when you index to the next round, it either falls off or you just kind of flick the spent cap off the nipple. That design alone makes these guns not have any cap jam issues whatsoever. Now, that's not to say a little piece can't kind of make the cylinder sticky when you go to index, and that holds true for the 58 Remington as well, to some degree. Although it has a full-blown slot back there, you can still get a piece of cap coming out, but it doesn't happen that often with the 58. But this one, it's pretty much impossible. I've never had any spent cap fragments go back in the action and prevent the hammer face from dropping all the way down. It just does not happen with the 73 single actions. If you love the looks of this gun and you love black powder, I would highly recommend the Uberti 1873 Cattlemans. These things are rock solid. They have a nice balance in the hand. They have a really nice sound. And they perform very well. I run in these 4.54 to 4.57 round balls. I would not run a 4.51 in these. They're too loose. They just don't stay seated against the powder like they should. The 4.51 round balls I do have work fine, work perfectly fine in the Pieta 44 cylinder, but I tried them in these and they're too loose, man. So if you get one of these, don't run anything smaller than .454 diameter. As a matter of fact, 4.57s work even better, and that's what I prefer to use. They're a little bit more, $5 more per 100 rounds of the Hornady 4.57 than they are the 4.54s and the 4.51. So if you're okay with spending a few dollars more, you're going to get better performance if you run the .457s in these guys. So just something to think about if you do get these. I don't know if it shows up on camera. My first one, the grips, they're walnut grips, but the second one you can kind of see the striping in the grip. So you never know what you're going to get when you order one of these. Some might have fancier looking grips than others. The color case hardening is beautiful. Now, when you see the advertisement, it says case hardening. I wouldn't trust that to be 100% true. Color case hardening is just mainly for aesthetics, cosmetics. I really don't think these things are truly case hardened. They can accept cowboy action, modern, if you convert them back over, you buy the cylinder, if you want to buy the 45 Colt bore through cylinder and shoot these, you're perfectly fine. With cowboy loads, I would keep your FPS under 1,000, even though this is modern steel, unlike the original black powder frames from the 1800s that, they could probably handle the stress, but I wouldn't put them through it. I'd just stick with under 1,000 FPS and 300 to under 300 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, and then run pure lead projectile, no copper jacketed, any of that stuff. Just stick with the old cowboy straight lead on these things, it'll be fine. They are not like your modern day firearms where you can get away with running plus P rounds through a much stronger steel barrel. So, I mean, it is what it is, but I tell you what, don't think for 1 second that these things are not deadly, that they can't kill someone or an animal, because they are very powerful guns. They're no joke. Now, they're trying to get my my slide spring back in there. And I'll just go ahead and put this one back together. But I've got another one on the way, guys. I'm not going to spoil you and tell you what it is, but it's one of the very few black powder Colt clones that actually hits point of aim. I know the 51 Navies are really notorious for point of aim instead of shooting high like a lot of them. This one I did, and by the way, it's not loaded, guys, but this one here I did a little notch in the back of the hammer. I did file that down deeper so that I could get a better sight picture on the front post sight, and I made it a little wider, and I actually off-centered that groove to the right because this gun would shoot a little bit high and a little bit to the left. So I had to remove some material from the right side of this groove on the hammer, and now it's accurate. I actually took it to at a pistol competition out at the range. One day there was a gentleman out there. He set up the pistol competition, and revolvers scored more points than a semi-automatic pistol. So he said, "You want to give it a try?" I said, "Sure." So I said, "I'm going to be a smartass, and I'm going to see if I get lucky here, and I'm going to shoot your furthest target out that was about 40 yards out, and I'm going to do it with one hand." And he kind of looked at me, eyebrows kind of popped. He said, "Oh, good luck." I said, "Okay." So, I got up there like I was Wild Bill Hickok or something. And I took my sweet time with one arm, and I focused on it, and lo and behold, I hit the target first try. Rung the steel on a gong target at 40 yards with this thing, one-handed. And I actually impressed myself. Now, I tried it a few more times. I tried like a half a dozen more times, and I think I hit it. I missed it a couple times, and I hit it maybe 2 more times. But for the first try out, everybody was like, "Wow, that's cool." And so I kind of got a little chuckle, a little giggle out of that, and I was kind of proud of myself for being able to pull that off. I really didn't think I could, but I thought I'll just be cocky and try it and see. And lo and behold, I did, and it was so much fun. But these are 5 of my black powder gun collection, and I've got one more that'll be in next week. I don't want to give this the spoiler away as to what it is. I'll just when it comes in, I'll do an unboxing, and we'll talk about it. Of course, I'm going to take it completely apart, clean it, deburr it, make sure the action, the timing, everything is good on it. If I need to do any filing here and there to get the timing perfected on it, I will. This one out of the box, the timing was perfect on it. This one, the timing was perfect on it. This one was a little bit off, but not bad. This one wound up getting over travel. I was able to correct it, and then this one did the same, but not as bad as the first one. But I do want to do a little bit more work on the pawl. I want to allow the hammer, after the cylinder locks up, to go back ever so slightly more to give a little more room for the trigger sear to engage. It's close, but it's not as good as this one. I've done more work on this one. This is my newest one, but aside from all of that, I mean, these things are great. All guns have their quirks that you have to work through. I mean, even the Glock 19 here, and this is my home defense gun. I've figured out what ammunition it doesn't like, and I can tell you, Winchester white box, it hates it. I've had what appears to be light primer strikes, and I thought, well, maybe something's going on with my. No, it turns out that I've had some defective rounds that at the factory, when the primers were pressed into the bullet casing, they were set in a little too deep, or the groove on the outside of the bullet casing was a little too thin, so it sat a little too deep in the breech, so when the firing pin struck it, it didn't strike it enough to detonate the round. And so I've had problems with inconsistency on cheap Winchester white box ammunition. It loves Herders. It loves Hornady critical defense. It loves Blazer, I think, ammo. That there's very few that I've had problems with, but there's some that I haven't. And like I said, this thing, it does not like Winchester white box ammo. So, but again, that falls back to what I said earlier. If you get a gun, don't just put ammunition and sit it on your bed's your nightstand and think, yeah, I've got a gun, it's going to protect me, if an intruder or whatever comes in the house. Well, if you want to make damn sure the thing goes bang every time you pull the trigger, get out to the range and start putting different types of ammunition to it, see what it does and see what it likes. Work out the kinks, work out the bugs, and then you can go back home and know that the specific type of ammunition that is tried and true at the range, you can sleep at night confidently knowing that if this thing, you had to rely on it saving your life, it's going to go bang when you pull the trigger. Versus, I hope it will. I haven't tested it out yet, so I highly encourage, and the same holds true for all the black powder. Do not assume that the gun's going to go off every time you pull the trigger, because that may be a fatal mistake and cost you your life. So you don't want that, God forbid you ever get in that position. But again, get out there to the range, have some fun, sling some lead, see what the gun likes, see what kind of problems you need to address on it, and make them reliable. These things can be every bit as reliable as a modern cartridge firearm, and there's no reason why you can't figure that out and sort that out and get them reliable. So yeah, there's some cons with black powder, but I tell you what, I have more fun shooting these than I do cartridge ammunition. These slow things way down. They give you more time to think and focus on your trigger control and your point of impact. And picture this. Let's say you were in the Wild West and you were at the OK Corral and you're having a gunfight with somebody, and this guy happened to have a modern, of course that's not going to happen, but let's say he had a semi-automatic pistol and he's just shooting like crazy at you, but he's shooting all around you, missing you. And after he's shot 6, 7, 8 rounds and you've just been focused and you hit him one time with one round and kill him, that's far more important with your shot placement being accurate than it is just blasting a bunch of rounds down range. I mean, know your gun is my point. Know what it can do, know where its point of impact is, know what it likes, know what it doesn't like. Feed it the food that it likes and works and cycles beautifully for this gun, and you'll love it. I mean, I absolutely love these black powder guns. I never thought that I really would, but when I started delving into this a few years ago, going into my 4th year, I absolutely love them. And if the world turned to shit, you couldn't get ammo, these would be rendered useless. I would stick with these because these things can be the survival tools that you need, because you can access the resources much easier and make projectile and powder and all that stuff for these guys. Anyway, guys, my throat's kind of killing me. And I've been sick for the past 17, 18 days. I'm on the tail end of it. And I wanted to do this video sooner, but yeah, dealing with this cold and everything is kind of threw a wrench in my gearbox. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to give you my pros and cons and my experiences with the different black powder revolvers that I have in my collection. And get out there. Don't be afraid to buy and try black powders, because you might actually find that you like them. I actually love them. These things have more personality and more nostalgia, and they're just sexier, more beautiful than Glocks and SIGs. And I mean, I like 1911s. Those are beautiful. Berettas, I've got one of this beautiful gun, blah, blah, blah. I didn't bring all my guns. I have too much to put on this table, but these are my favorite. These have the most personality, and these get the most attention and turn more heads at the range than showing up out there with an AR-15, a Beretta M9, or a 1911, or a Glock, any of the generation, any of them. People love these, and they gravitate to these, and they're like, wow, that's a cool gun, what is that? And then when I tell them it's a black powder cloner, they're like, whoa. I go, you don't have to do 4.473s, you don't have to go to an FFL. You can ship them. They're like, their eyes just bug out. And they're like, wow, those are so cool. Now I know, again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm gonna end the video on that because I'm rambling too much, and I'm kind of getting tired of hearing myself talk. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, a big shout out to my boy Drizo and Black Powder Papa. You guys go check out their YouTube channels. These guys are passionate about our Second Amendment rights. They have fantastic content on their channel, and show them some love, man. Give them a likes, give them subs, and comment on their videos. And Black Powder Papa has a lot of content regarding non-lethal as a first line of defense, and I think that is brilliant because you can get in a lot of legal trouble if you kill someone, obviously. Even though we're in a stand your ground state here in Colorado, and I'm sure Texas is probably the same thing. If somebody breaks into your house with the intent to do you harm and they're facing you and you shoot them and you kill them, you know, you're probably going to be in the clear. You might have a little legal repercussion, but and that's the whole true here in Colorado, except if they turn their back and try to run and you shoot them, then you can get in big trouble. So make sure they're facing you before you shoot them, but hopefully you're never in that position. If you have a non-lethal, like the burner pepper balls, you know, type self-defense, non-lethal self-defense stuff, that would be ideal as your first choice to stop an assailant without killing them, and, you know, making them hightail and run, or putting them down on the ground, call the cops, whatever you need to do to stop the assailant without killing them. And that's, I think, is smarter, a smarter choice, and it's better all the way around for both parties involved. So, but I enjoy these at the range. These are so much fun. Would I trust one of these if I didn't have one of these? And that's all I got. Absolutely, absolutely. And of all the, if I didn't have the conversion cylinder and all I had was black powder, which I actually enjoy shooting more, believe it or not. Of these 5 on the table, the 73 and the 58 Remington, the Colt and the Remington would be my #1 choice for being the most reliable. This would be my last choice. And like I said, I still got to work their bugs out. But this would be a good second choice. The 51 is very accurate. And it is powerful enough to put someone out or kill them, you know. So if I didn't have, if I didn't have these in the Remington and it came down to these two, the 51 would win out of that for sure. But that Remington goes bang every time. It's never, ever failed to go bang. And same with these. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with any of these 4 on the bench right now. I wouldn't trust the 62 unless you worked out all the bugs, but I'm still trying to get this thing reliable. It's a cool little gun. But again, like I said, I got to work out the reliability issues. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut the video. You guys have a fantastic Christmas coming up. Stay tuned for the unboxing of the new black powder gun that's coming soon. Later.
I should have been a cowboy.